What's up, folks? I'm Chris, your NFL writer here at Occupy Fantasy, here with a look at the 11-game slate here in Week 6 for this upcoming NFL Sunday on FanDuel, DraftKings, and Yahoo. This week, our favorite play on the slate is New England Patriots running back Rhamondre Stevenson. One of the impactful injuries from Week 5 is that Damian Harris got hurt very early in their 29-0 victory over the Detroit Lions. And what we saw take place after that is the Patriots employ a very run-heavy strategy with Rhamondre Stevenson. Now, it does seem like another running back like J.J. Taylor or even rookie Pierre Strong could see a little bit of work behind Rhamondre here, but we expect him to dominate the opportunities for the Patriots in Week 6 on the road against the Browns. So I think he's going to be another great play here. And at just $6,000 here on DraftKings, $7,500 over on FanDuel, I think you want to get him into the majority, if not all, of your lineups at his anticipated workload. As always, if you've been watching our show, you know that we like to look at who the biggest favorites are on each particular slate to get a gauge for which other running backs we should be considering before we dive into projected ownership. Last week, we had two favorites that were double digits. This week, just one. We have the Los Angeles Rams favored by 10 points against the Carolina Panthers this week. The Panthers will be led by P.J. Walker at quarterback. We've already received confirmation that Baker Mayfield is going to be out. And if you thought that the quarterback play with Carolina couldn't possibly get any worse, one thing that I was looking into, Baker Mayfield's PFF passing grade this season is actually higher than PJ Walker's was last year in some work that he got for the Panthers. So this is not a potential upgrade for the Panthers passing game at all. So the Rams being favored by 10 points, despite how much they have struggled to begin the season here, does make quite a bit of sense facing a backup quarterback. Now, at the running back position for the Rams, I don't know if we want to consider playing either of these guys here on the 11-game slate, but if you want the answer for who the better play is, it is Cam Akers right now. Akers has been getting more touches on the ground for them, not a ton of targets in the passing game. You can see that here in his recent game logs. Darrell Henderson has retained a role in the passing game. You see all these targets that he has accumulated in the last few weeks, 5 targets against the Cowboys, 4 targets against the 49ers. Kind of messy. Neither back getting a true 3-down workload for the Rams right now. Favored by 10 points. If it trends to a positive game script, if this type of usage holds, it does suggest that Cam Akers is the better play of the two here for what it's worth. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are favored by 8 against the Pittsburgh Steelers on the road. Leonard Fournette will once again be the right play here in this backfield. As much as they talk about reducing his workload and getting Rachaad White involved a little bit more, we see that the touches are still very strong in the backfield, and the targets especially have held up for Leonard Fournette. So as over a touchdown favorite, expect Leonard Fournette to be reasonably popular once again in Week 6. $7,400 price tag is going to make it a little difficult to get to him with some of the other backs that we have to talk about here in a second, though. The Green Bay Packers are favored by 7.5 points in their matchup this week with the New York Jets. Aaron Jones has sort of retaken the number one running back mantle from A.J. Dillon in recent weeks. His rush share and his target share, fairly reasonable. Dillon has seen the targets drop significantly, and obviously last week against the Giants, only just 6 rush attempts. So we're at a low on the season for usage for A.J. Dillon. So I do think in this backfield, if you choose to play one of these Packers guys, it is Aaron Jones. $7,600 though, once again, might be a little difficult to get up to him considering some of the other plays that we have available. San Francisco 49ers are favored by 5.5 in their matchup this week with the Atlanta Falcons. Jeff Wilson is still the number one tailback here, 17 carries last week against the Panthers. 2 targets in the passing game. We saw the 49ers finally start to mix in Tevin Coleman a little bit more last week. He had 3 targets and a few carries in the backfield. So Jeff Wilson's complete ownership of the running back work in this backfield may actually be severely at risk here if they continue to ramp Coleman up. So that's definitely something to consider before you run Jeff Wilson this week. One thing that is going to be very popular on this slate is Arizona Cardinals running back Eno Benjamin. See, he's just $4,600 here on DraftKings, $6,300 over on FanDuel. We already know by now here on Thursday evening that James Conner and Darrell Williams are not going to play for the Arizona Cardinals. That means Eno is going to be the next man up in this backfield. He's going to get the majority of the backfield touches. He's going to get the majority of the targets from Kyler Murray in this offense at the running back position. Maybe rookie Keontae Ingram mixes in a little bit. Maybe Jonathan Ward sees a little bit of work in the backfield to spell him. But Eno is absolutely the guy here for the Arizona Cardinals in Week 6. And at this price tag, we're going to end up playing him quite a bit in all lineup types, low and high risk. Arizona and the Seattle Seahawks are playing in the second highest total game on this slate at 50.5 points. So not only is going to be popular in low risk, as I mentioned, but this game just in general is going to be one of the most popular games people are playing in high risk contests. The other one is definitely the game of the week. It's Patrick Mahomes, it's Josh Allen, it's the Bills at the Chiefs at 4:25 p.m., the hammer game on this slate. And Josh Allen, he's just doing superhuman things. So any single week that he's on the slate, obviously we're going to consider him. Patrick Mahomes, probably going to prove to be a little bit more difficult to stack just because of the pricing of someone like Travis Kelce, who's the most obvious pairing partner with him. And there isn't a clear third option. Marquez Valdes-Scantling and Juju Smith-Schuster are both receiving reasonable work in the passing game, but neither has really hit a ceiling just yet. Juju actually is on our underperforming wide receiver list this week, so he may be the best option here to consider as the third option to pair with Patrick Mahomes and Chiefs stacks, but he's also more expensive than MVS here, who has seen similar opportunity in the passing game. So that's definitely something to consider before you go down the path of building Chiefs and Bills stacks. The Buffalo side, probably immensely more popular. We've seen the ceiling of this Buffalo offense. We haven't necessarily seen it from the Kansas City side yet, but that may make Kansas City a little more appealing in high-risk contests if less people are going to play it, right? Arizona and Seattle, significantly cheaper across the board than Bills Chiefs, and therefore a lot easier to stack. Let's walk through it really quickly here. Kyler Murray at quarterback, $7,300, can make plays with both his arm and his legs, although we have not necessarily seen the rushing production this year as we have in years past. He may be due for some regression in our favor in that regard. Geno Smith, a lot cheaper than Kyler Murray, so we'll come back to a Geno stack here in a second and show you what that would look like. Someone we probably want to get in here just because of the $4,600 price tag. Marquis Brown, the clear wide receiver one. Zach Ertz, the clear tight end one, just $4,900. Even somebody like Rondale Moore, who's now definitively back in the slot for them with AJ Green healthy and playing once again, and Greg Dortch not really an option anymore. We've got 5 playable Arizona Cardinals players here, and honestly, it's very viable to get 3 to 4 of these guys in one lineup the way the pricing is this week. Though, number one pricing thing in this game to be aware of that is absolutely ridiculous is Tyler Lockett. $5,600 here on DraftKings. That's the exact same price that he had last week in their game against the New Orleans Saints, where he went off for 104 yards and 2 touchdowns. Tyler Lockett is going to be the most popular wide receiver on this slate because his price is just simply too cheap on DraftKings. Over on FanDuel, Lockett is a much more competitive $7,500, and he projects in our Occupy model, this is our wide receiver rankings for the week, projects as the most popular wide receiver play on DraftKings because of the pricing, but he's going to be just 9% over on FanDuel is what we think at his $7,500 price tag. Just keep that in mind in terms of where you are playing this week. Lockett, significantly more popular over on the DraftKings side of things. Can we super stack like this? That is definitely something that we have talked about extensively on our $1 Million Mission show that Brian and Moose do every single Tuesday night. This week, already mentioned my favorite play at the running back position is Ramondre Stevenson. Our top defense in our model this week actually is the Cincinnati Bengals against the Saints, so throw them in here. You can definitely run a lineup like this. I still err on the side of running one of our more traditional 3-1 stacks, so I would probably come off of one of these players here, and one of the more logical places to do so is definitely at one of these pass catcher positions with the Cardinals, so I might look for another value play other than Rondale Moore here. A couple of guys that will be popular, especially in low-risk contests this week in that price range. Alec Pierce with the Indianapolis Colts, rookie wide receiver here. Their clear number 2 wide receiver. Very reasonable target share that he has seen since returning from his injury that caused him to miss week 2. He's just $4,300 here on DraftKings. And then we also have Romeo Doubs with the Green Bay Packers, who projects as one of the most popular wide receivers of the week. One of the clear primary outside wide receivers for Aaron Rodgers and the Packers right now. In their matchup with the Jets, he could be pretty popular. So running one of these guys like Doubs or Pierce and going with a 4-1 with Arizona potentially might be a little more reasonable on this slate. On the other side of things, you can still play this game with Geno at a much cheaper price tag than Kyler Murray. You're going to definitely want DK Metcalf in here to make that work. $8,500 per player remaining. We don't even need a punt wide receiver here because We've got Ken Walker, their rookie second-round pick, who is now the clear number one running back in this offense. Rashad Penny, unfortunately, done for the season because of a broken fibula, so he is now out. We expect Walker to be the primary tailback. That is one of the other super impactful injuries on this slate. He would be a must-have, I think, in any of these Seattle super stack lineups that you might try to build this week. And just using the shell of the lineup I had here for Arizona earlier, we have $7,900 remaining to finish off this particular build. So this is a very difficult DFS week to get different, because I do think you're going to see people gravitate towards these types of builds, especially with Seattle and Arizona in high-risk contests, which means that we have to be aware of it and we have to build around it and try to find combinations that make sense, that won't get completely buried if the field is correct about this, because this is definitely the way that it is going to go. In low-risk contests, some other running backs that should be on your radar this week, really for high-risk contests as well. Breece Hall is still not priced high enough here on DraftKings. He's now seen just shy of 20 carries 2 consecutive weeks for the New York Jets, and his passing game role has been strong really the entire season. Breece Hall just $5,800 in his matchup. He is a road underdog for the Jets here, but his salary should be at least $1,000 higher here on DraftKings. He's $7,100 over on FanDuel, so he's a reasonable play there as well. I think people will gravitate towards considering Breece Hall. And then we also have Miami's Raheem Mostert. 63% of the rush attempts in this offense over the last 3 weeks, but 9% of the targets. He does have a Q tag here today here on DraftKings.com, but he has told reporters that he does expect to play on Sunday, and he's been, thus far, clearly ahead of Chase Edmonds in the running game for the Miami Dolphins. So I think he is another option at the running back position at a reasonable salary that's worth considering here in Week 6. Cash game wide receivers. Went over this a little bit, talking about stacking Arizona and Seattle. In our model, we can do one of two things to identify the best wide receivers in low-risk contests, or really all contests. And the first thing that we can do is look at how the field is going to treat them. Sorting just by projected DraftKings ownership in our model, we already know that Tyler Lockett is going to be the most popular wide receiver on DraftKings. Right behind him, Josh Allen's number one wide receiver, Stephon Diggs, the number 2 highest projected owned wide receiver on the slate. Romeo Doubs from the Green Bay Packers behind him. Rondale Moore, Arizona Cardinals slot wide receiver right behind him. All those guys will be above 15% in DraftKings tournaments, which means that you can expect to see a healthy dose of these 4 wide receivers in DraftKings low-risk contests. Now over on FanDuel, same thing, sorting by projected ownership there. We've got Diggs as well. We have Cooper Kupp with the Rams, which makes sense. He's always going to see double-digit targets the way he's used right now. Deebo Samuel of the San Francisco 49ers creeps in here. Romeo Doubs once again. Drake London with the Atlanta Falcons. Very cheap, $6,100 at wide receiver over on FanDuel. Definitely opens things up a little bit. As well as Doubs, just $5,500 on FanDuel. A little too cheap for his role in that offense. These are going to be the most popular cash game wide receivers, I would think, on FanDuel. On Yahoo, we have projected ownership for Yahoo now, if you're the type of player that only plays over there. Same group of guys as on FanDuel, with the addition of Justin Jefferson from the Minnesota Vikings and Marquis Brown of the Arizona Cardinals, just based off their pricing. Looks like they'll end up reasonably popular over there this weekend. Quarterbacks, other than the big 4 in the Chiefs-Bills game and the Cardinals-Seahawks game, I think you want to consider. Tom Brady in a strong matchup against the Pittsburgh Steelers. He's throwing the ball a ton. And last week, we still got over the 300-yard bonus. We got over 22 fantasy points for Tom Brady on DraftKings with just 1 touchdown pass. With some variance here in our favor. Hopefully, he can throw 2 or 3 touchdown passes to some of our favorite Bucks pass catchers, right? And that would get his number up a little bit, so that's why our model likes that. Tampa Bay also has one of the highest team totals on the slate. So that's another thing to consider. Tom Brady, just $6,300 on DraftKings, $75 over on FanDuel. Going to be someone worth considering in all DraftKings contests once again in Week 6. And we see by sorting by projected ownership that Brady will be the 3rd most popular quarterback on DraftKings, behind a very popular Josh Allen and a very popular Geno Smith, who's going to be 12% roughly in tournaments because of that $5,700 price tag. So these 3 guys right here, Josh Allen, Geno Smith, Tom Brady, probably the quote-unquote best plays in low-risk contests. Let's try and build a low-risk lineup for Week 6. And let's go with the medium-priced Geno Smith just to see what we can fit into our lineups. Mentioned Ramondre Stevenson as my favorite play on the slate. We now know that Eno Benjamin is going to be the starting running back for the Arizona Cardinals at $4,600. He should be in all of your lineups. Now remember, We're trying to maximize our exposure to touches and upside from those touches in our low-risk lineups. The vast majority of the time, that means we want to play 3 running backs in low-risk contests. This week, other than Stevenson and Eno Benjamin, you could go with some of those favorites I talked about earlier in the video. Cam Akers from the Rams, Leonard Fournette from the Bucks, Aaron Jones or A.J. Dillon from the Packers, Jeff Wilson from the 49ers. Or you could consider some of these other running backs that have prices that are a little too low and still have elite roles in their offenses. That'd be Breece Hall from the Jets, Raheem Mostert from the Miami Dolphins, or another running back who is going to be the number 1 guy in his backfield because of injury here. Seattle Seahawks running back Kenneth Walker III, just $5,400 here on DraftKings. He's who I'm going to select for this particular type of build. $56.60 per player remaining. Our number 1 defense in the Occupy model this week is the Cincinnati Bengals in their matchup with the New Orleans Saints, so I'm going to slot them in here. A tight end that has a really large role and a really attractive matchup this week is Zach Ertz of the Arizona Cardinals, so we're going to select him. Our most popular wide receiver of the week is Tyler Lockett of the Seattle Seahawks. Still way too cheap here on DraftKings. We're going to select him. I've got $73.50 to fill the final 2 wide receiver slots in my low-risk lineup here using a Geno Smith play at quarterback. There is plenty of ways to get a solid cash build here. And you also see that this is also the framework of a really solid high-risk lineup because I have 3 Seattle Seahawks in here, 2 Arizona Cardinals. It's definitely a little bit of a super stack build that we've started to build here, but I do think that in low-risk contests, you're going to see people attack the slate somewhat this way this week, and that's what we have to be aware of as we prepare for Week 6. Keep an eye out for the daily plug. That will be posted at OccupyFantasy.com by Friday evening at the absolute latest, around about 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We will also have a live stream on Saturday afternoon where Moose and Brian will break down all of the additional angles on this slate that we have uncovered throughout the week, so you're certainly not going to want to miss that. We will have a Sunday night football plug that will be brought to you by our NFL writer Ken. And we'll also have a Monday night football preview video from Brian that'll be available for you on Monday, and a Monday night plug that will come out. There's a ton of NFL action going on. We've got a ton of NBA action that's going to be heating up with the season starting next week. See a lot of videos on this channel about NBA slates, so make sure that you check those out as well. We know from looking at our analytics, about 75% of you that view our videos do not subscribe to the channel. We would really appreciate it if you would consider subscribing to the channel so you can get notified when all of this great content is posted and available for you. Good luck in Week 6, everyone, and we will talk to you in Week 7.